Hey, this is Scott again with an update on my black soldier fly larva colony. As you recall the other day, if you've been following my videos, I fashioned this 2-bucket composter, if you will, because my biopod hasn't come in yet. And I just got a nice email from the company. Actually, they found one of my videos on YouTube, and the guy wrote to me and apologized profusely and said he's going to look into it and gave me a lot of tips too. So it's compostmania.com. His name is Carl, really nice guy, and he's been an extremely big help so far in this new endeavor. So the first thing I check every day, and actually I check this every few hours just to make sure it's still doing okay. But when I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I do is I pick the bucket lid up and I look around the edge to make sure none of them crawled up there, and it looks good. And the next thing I do is kind of poke around and look to see where they're at. A few minutes ago they were underneath one of these pieces of bread, but I just checked again and they've moved down a little bit. There they are. A little bit shy right now because I had the other garage door open and some light hit them. So there's kind of half the colony, the other half is on this side, but they're buried in that seaweed right now. See them all? Okay, so they're doing really well. Forgot to tell you, the next thing I look for after I'm done, figure somebody decided to pound something over there. It's always really quiet out here, and today somebody decided to do some building. The next thing I look for when I get up in the morning is I look down here to make sure none of them have crawled through the mat. If you recall, I had a cocoa mat underneath there. And I look up underneath the bucket too to make sure that there's none stuck to the bottom, because they can crawl through there if they really wanted to. Since I keep I keep the food pretty fresh, even though it's still moldy bread, to them it's fresh. I'm finding if I keep them busy on top, then they really don't need to go down to the bottom. They don't go. Around the edge here, I put, as a test, I put like a little band of Vaseline. You can see the kind of different color that's all the way around. I was hoping that would keep them down if they decided to crawl up, especially the white ones who are not ready to come out yet, but it hasn't affected them. They crawl right through it. And if you remember the other day when I first built the bucket, I had all these holes up here that I drilled, and I noticed that on the first night that they had actually crawled through the Vaseline, and there's about 4 or 5 of them that were up towards one of these holes, and they were peeking out, but I looked around and I didn't see any that fell out. I think I got to them just in time. They were white ones, so they weren't ready to crawl out. I think they just were trying to explore, and I didn't have as much food in there as I do now too. So what I ended up doing is taking some frog tape, painter's frog tape, and I lined the inside of these holes, and then I poked a little hole inside each one of the holes. And so I wanted, they still need to breathe, and if I put the lid on it, it's not super airtight, but at the same time they don't get as much oxygen, and they really need oxygen for their to break down and compost correctly. So that's been a very good fix so far. As you can see, some of the tape's falling off the edge because it's really humid in there, which is another benefit I found with keeping it kind of closed up like this without as much airflow. When I had just the large holes there without the small hole, without the painter's tape in the small holes, it got pretty dry in there, and right now it's really moist. That's how they like it. That's how they thrive. And so I'm finding that if I put that painter's tape on there, they still have enough airflow, and yet it doesn't let all the air escape so that it stays nice and humid in there. Now, the other thing I was going to put on top of here was that T-post. I haven't done so yet because I wanted to test this out. I'll reach the T-post here. So that would go through, and I'd cut a hole in the bucket to that size. I believe it's 2 1/4 inches. And from the bottom side, I'd screw it together so that this T-post would actually let the females crawl through, the adult females crawl in and lay their eggs on the bottom part of the lid. And that's going to be another update that I do after I'm done with after I get the biopod and move them all over there. I'm going to take some of them and put them in this bucket and put the other half in the other bucket and the other composter and see which one thrives. And I assume they both, both colonies will do extremely well. But I'm interested to see how much, if this will dry it out, with this big airflow up there on the top. But somehow the females do have to get in. So that's what I wanted to show you today. They're still doing fine. I haven't seen any dead ones in there. They're getting bigger. There's a couple of darker gray ones, but they're not full-grown adults yet, or pupae, I should say. So they're getting there, but this is a nice little update for you for today. Talk to you soon.